Welcome to Scary Stories. This time we've got two different confessions sent in to us via email from men claiming that they are afflicted with an illness that doesn't officially exist outside of books and movies. Lycanthropy, or the affliction of werewolfism. One claims he received the condition because of a bite from another infected individual, while the other doesn't really know how he became ill and presumes he must have inherited the curse. Each guy couldn't be more different from the other, but here they are, both confessing to us that they're trying to live and cope with their affliction of werewolfism. Both men prefer to remain anonymous, each for their own separate reason, and I do not personally know either gentleman. I'm going on their say alone when I refer to these as true stories, so please remember that I have no proof that any of this is real. Still, I'm not going to call either of these men a liar, as I've never met either one of them. Submitted for your approval, two alleged werewolf confessions, beginning with the first, which is entitled, Veteran with Lycanthropy. Dear Scary Stories NYC, I have been dealing with lycanthropy and the bureaucracy which denies that it exists for nearly 20 years now. And I wanted to point out what things you've gotten right about it, but also what parts you've gotten wrong. Of course, I can only speak from my point of view as former Army, currently living a nomadic life with some of my brothers here, who are also afflicted with the illness that no doctor admits is real, werewolfism, or lycanthropy. I actually caught mine overseas, in a way that they never warn you about. Let me start from the beginning, and tell you how it all began. When I entered the last few months of my tour in the Army, I got shipped out to do guard duty in Eastern Europe. Initially, I was ecstatic when I found out I was being stationed in peaceful Romania. After months of serving in various war zones, I longed for some peace and quiet. It was a beautiful country, and I loved everything about it. The food, the people, the culture, everything was perfect. Most of all, the lack of warfare. And then, one night, that all changed. I was walking back to the base after having dinner with some new friends. On the way, I got into a street brawl with a crazy drunk teenager who had been insulting the women in our group. I socked him on the noggin a few times, and the guy actually responded by biting me on the arm. He bit through the skin, that creep. So my next punch turned his lights out. My friends insisted that I needed to go to the hospital and have the wound checked out. But while we were arguing about it, I swear, the cut closed itself up. None of us saw it happen, but the next time we looked at my arm, none of us could see where I had been bitten anymore. I didn't really think anything of it at the time, assuming it was just a minor injury, which we had exaggerated. But later that night, I began to feel ill. Initially, I just thought I had the flu, but the symptoms persisted and worsened. Eventually, I realized that something was very wrong. I couldn't stop sweating. My skin began to itch like crazy, and my senses became heightened. I know that last part doesn't fit with the other things I just said. Like I didn't feel tired. In fact, I felt more energetic than ever, just in a very uncomfortable way. It was like I was becoming something else. I began to notice sudden changes in my behavior. One night, I woke up outside, covered in what might have been blood, but I didn't have any cuts on me, so maybe it wasn't that at all. I didn't know how I'd gotten there, because I couldn't remember anything after locking myself in my room the night before. And then, I saw my reflection in a puddle of water, revealing that my face was covered in hair. My eyes glimmered like a wild animal's, and my teeth were sharp like knives. I tried to scream, but it came out more like a howl. I ran home whimpering, and somewhere along the way, I sensed that I had returned to a more normal human state. My facial hair was mostly gone. My senses were more normal, although they have never really completely returned to normal since this all began. Even in my human state, I can still see better in the dark. I can still smell who's outside my door when there's a knock. I can hear footsteps or even breathing at a great distance. Talking about the night vision, I seem to be able to see in almost complete darkness, to the point where I haven't turned on a light in my house since before I shipped out overseas. Now, what does all that sound like to you? For me, I was certain that I had contracted lycanthropy. I was becoming a werewolf. I had to be. That was the only explanation that explained every part of what was happening, even though the idea of it seemed so impossible. When I went to the army doctors for help, I stupidly tried being honest with them, that I thought it was lycanthropy and I thought I was becoming a werewolf. They denied it could be that, and dismissed my concerns as mere symptoms of PTSD. They prescribed me medication and sent me back to duty. I begged them to find that young guy who had bitten me, but they threatened me with disciplinary action if I didn't drop the subject. I kept my eye out for that guy, hoping I could maybe get him to explain what was happening to me and what I should do about it. But things only got worse from there. My transformations became more frequent and more violent. Soon, I started seeing visions of the people I had hurt while transformed. I couldn't handle it anymore, and I sought help from other sources. I took my buddy who could speak the local language, and I went to see a folk doctor who confirmed my suspicions and revealed that lycanthropy was not uncommon in Romania. It was believed to be a curse that was usually passed down from generation to generation, and could also be spread through sharing bodily fluids, even saliva. But there were supposedly ways to control it within certain limits. I was given a list of remedies and daily routines to follow to avoid situations that would be more likely to cause me to turn. After being discharged, returning home from Romania after contracting lycanthropy was not what I had imagined it to be. I was excited to be back with my family, but I knew deep down that it would not be easy to reintegrate into society now that I was a werewolf. At first, my family was happy to see me too, but as I started to exhibit the symptoms of lycanthropy, they started to push me away. It was challenging for them to understand what I was going through, and things only got worse with time. My mother refused to let me sleep in the same house as her. My father, who was a combat veteran himself, became angry and resentful, blaming me for bringing this curse upon myself. And my sister, she was too scared to even talk to me. The people I loved most were terrified of me, and I didn't know what to do. It was painful to see how my family was reacting to my condition. I had been hoping for support and comfort, but all I received was fear and rejection. I tried to explain my situation to them, but they refused to listen, convinced that I wasn't sick, but instead had brought this upon myself. Things came to a head one night when we were out at an event, and I had an episode, transforming in front of my family. They were horrified, and I could see the disappointment in their eyes. Even when I transformed back, they wouldn't talk to me, and wouldn't let me come home either. It's been challenging trying to reconcile with my family, and sometimes I wish I had never come back home at all. But I know that I need to find a way to make amends with them. It's not easy living with lycanthropy, and it's even harder when you feel like you have nowhere to turn. As difficult as it's been, I have found some solace in the knowledge that some people do understand what I'm going through. I found a community of other lycanthropes who help me cope with my condition and accept me for who I am. I have hoped that perhaps one day my family will come around as well. Until then, I will live my life as best as I can and be there for anyone who is going through the same thing that I am. Despite everything, I still believe that there is a chance for me to live a happy and fulfilling life, even though I'm a werewolf. After my family rejected me, I had no other place to go. With no job and little money, I ended up on the street. I tried to find work, but no one wanted to hire me in my condition, which was clearly not good and worsening. It became harder to control my transformations, like I was becoming less human by the week. One day, as I wandered into the woods and found myself feeling more at home than I had in a long time, I realized I should just live in the wild, surviving off the land, and hunting like an animal. I felt free from the constraints of society, and for a while, it was almost peaceful. But with time, I began to realize that living like an animal was not the life I wanted for myself. I longed for some human companionship, and someone who understood what I was going through. That's when fate and luck decided that I was ready, and somewhat miraculously, completely by accident, I found a band of werewolves who had formed their own nomadic community. At first I was hesitant to approach them, unsure of how they would react to a lone werewolf, but I soon found out that they were welcoming and accepting of my condition. They understood the difficulties of living with lycanthropy and had formed their own community to support each other. I was amazed at how they were able to find ways to live in harmony with their condition. They taught me how to keep my condition under control through meditation, rituals, and herbal remedies. They taught me how to move between the human and animal world, and they gave me a sense of belonging that I had been lacking for so long. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I was part of something bigger than myself. We traveled together, like a family of wolves, moving from town to town, place to place, always looking out for each other. And while life on the road can be tough, it's a small price to pay for the freedom and acceptance that comes with living among people who understand what you're going through. Life is still challenging, but I'm grateful for every night spent by the fire, every meal shared, and every howl at the moon with my new wolf pack. I no longer feel like an outcast or a freak. I'm part of a community of people who share my condition and understand what it means to be a werewolf. It's been a long journey, but I finally feel like I've found a place where I belong. Story number 2. I believe I inherited werewolfism. Dear Scary Stories NYC, I never believed in werewolves or any of that supernatural nonsense, but that all changed when I came down with lycanthropy. I never thought it was possible, but here I am, living proof that lycanthropy is real. If you aren't already familiar with the term, lycanthropy is a word used in werewolf literature to describe the supernatural transformation of an individual into a werewolf, typically occurring during a full moon. Now, I have no choice but to believe that werewolves are real, and lycanthropy is a very real phenomenon. So when I refer to it, I really am talking about lycanthropy as some kind of an affliction. I'm not sure if it's an illness, a virus, a genetic disorder, or what, but my werewolfism is to me a very concrete and irrefutable thing. According to legend, lycanthropy can be passed down through family bloodlines, or be acquired through a bite from a werewolf. Once inflicted, a person will begin to exhibit physical changes and behavioral characteristics that are associated with werewolves. Hair will begin to sprout all over the body. Their senses will become heightened and they will experience an overwhelming urge to hunt and kill. During the transformation, the person's bones will crack and rearrange themselves, allowing them to stand on all fours if necessary, and take on a more wolf-like appearance, even among those who remain upright and bipedal. They will lose all sense of their human conscience, which suddenly becomes apparent as imaginary social constructs created to control through confusion and manipulation. Some werewolves also lose their memory when returning to human form, although that usually softens with time and experience. Becoming a ferocious predator, capable of attacking and killing without mercy, is not something to be taken lightly. Besides the harm that can be caused during the attack itself, there are usually repercussions that can last a lifetime. Often, But not always, at least for me. The transformation will last until dawn, when the person returns to their human form once again. For those who suffer from lycanthropy, the experience can be terrifying and isolating, as they are forced to fight against their own inner demons. While many may see us as monsters, I firmly believe that this is simply a result of our affliction, and that we deserve compassion and understanding, rather than fear and persecution. Now, for me personally, it all started when I noticed some strange changes in my body. This was just a little after my 18th birthday. I found myself always feeling hungrier than usual, and my sense of smell and hearing were heightened. I chalked it up to stress, but it wasn't until my fingernails started to grow longer, stronger, and sharper that I knew something was weird. After a series of tests and consultations with various medical professionals, I was told that my metabolism had sped up remarkably, but none of their suggested possible reasons why made any sense to me. They noticed that my eyebrows had filled in over my nose, becoming one long hairy caterpillar across my face. They also noticed that I already had 5 o'clock shadow by 9 or 10 a.m. Their explanation for all of this was that it was all because of my metabolism spurt. That's what they called it, a spurt. And I guess they thought it was my body working out the last of its adolescent changes a little late in the game. Looking back, I can't understand how and why the experts all seem to coalesce around that way of looking at it. The only trouble was, I wasn't just speeding up my metabolism somehow. I was speeding up my metabolism to become a werewolf. You know, I used to like that movie Teen Wolf. It seemed like a comedy to me. Nowadays I watch it and I weep. It's like a Greek tragedy of the first order. I began to have less and less respect for so-called experts of science. And for better or worse, I found myself moving into circles where there were other kinds of experts. Experts on the supernatural and the paranormal, and basically anything else that science said wasn't for reals. When I started to describe my symptoms to a man at a party one night, I found a crowd gathering around us, listening in. When people started to add their opinions in polite terms, my worst fears were confirmed. In their collective opinion, I was a lycanthrope, a werewolf. It seems that the general opinion of that crowd was that lycanthropy is a genetic disorder that can be passed down through families. Since I was never bitten, it must have been passed down to me through one of my parents. Obviously, I can't state that as a proven fact, but it is the theory that I currently believe most strongly. Honestly, at first I thought it was kinda cool, like having a superpower. Part of that was that I had begun to date women from that scene who all treated me like a celebrity because they were convinced I was a werewolf, or at least in the process of becoming one. In spite of all that though, and I'm not saying this to try to get sympathy, but the real-life day-to-day reality of living with lycanthropy has been anything but cool. I have to constantly keep my urges in check and avoid triggering situations that could cause me to transform, because it's not only the moon which can set off a transformation with me, but strong dark emotions as well. I have to keep my distance from people so I don't accidentally hurt them. It's a lonely existence. The transformation itself is painful and violent. It feels like every bone in my body is breaking, and my skin feels like it's on fire. I lose control of myself during transformation, and it's terrifying to wake up afterward, sometimes not knowing what I've done or who I've hurt, but other times remembering bit by bit as the day wears on. Living with lycanthropy is not only physically taxing, but emotionally draining as well. I feel like a burden on my friends and family, even when I just ghost on them for a year at a time. It's a difficult existence, but I am learning how to manage it. I'm seeing a therapist and I'm slowly coming to terms with my condition. I've learned that lycanthropy is not a curse, but a part of who I am. It may be a struggle to live with, but I am determined to make the best of it and find a way to live a fulfilling life even with this condition. The most devastating consequence of my lycanthropy was the loss of the relationship I had with the woman that I had intended to marry. We had been together for over 3 years, and I thought we were meant to be together. But everything changed when I transformed into a werewolf in front of her. I thought I had control over my urges, but I was wrong. The transformation came on suddenly and violently, and I couldn't calm myself and stop the process. I could see the fear in her eyes as I turned into the creature before her. When I came to my senses, I was horrified at what I had done. I knew I had frightened her, but I didn't know how bad until she told me afterward. She hadn't been harmed physically, but she was so scared that she couldn't even look me in the eye anymore. She ended up leaving me, and I haven't seen her since. The devastation of what happened with my ex has taken a toll on me emotionally. It's hard to explain the pain of losing someone you love because of something that's out of your control. I thought she would understand and accept me for who I am, but my lycanthropy is too much for anyone to handle. I am left with the guilt and the shame of what I've done to her. There isn't a day that goes by when I don't think about her and what we once had. It's hard to move on from someone you loved with all of your heart, but I know that I have to try. Living with lycanthropy has made me realize that it's not just about me. My condition affects those around me as well. It's a harsh reality to face, but I have to live with it. I hope someday I can find someone who'll accept me for who I am and help me through the struggles of this condition. But until then, I have to focus on controlling my urges and making sure that I don't hurt anyone else. While being a lycanthrope has definitely made my life more complicated and challenging, I have to admit that there are some fun advantages to being a werewolf. Like, there's super strength. As a werewolf, I possess an impressive amount of physical strength that allows me to lift and move things that an ordinary human can't. That's pretty handy. 2. Regeneration. One of the most impressive aspects of being a werewolf is the ability to regenerate quickly. Superficial wounds tend to heal in a matter of minutes, and more serious injuries take significantly less time to heal than they would for anyone else. Number 3, we mentioned already, increased senses. Being a werewolf comes with increased sense of smell, sight, and hearing, even to some lesser extent when in human form. It's almost like having superpowers, and it makes it easier to navigate the world around me. And number 4, speed. As a werewolf, I can run incredibly fast. I've found that I can keep up with cars going at moderate speeds, which is pretty exhilarating. These advantages are undoubtedly cool, but they don't make up for the challenges that come with being a werewolf. It's essential to manage my condition so that I don't hurt myself or anyone around me accidentally. But it's helpful to know that there are some perks to being a lycanthrope. I do have one idea or theory about lycanthropy that I don't know if anyone else has stated openly in the public yet. This might explain how such an impossible thing as a transformation from a human into an animal and back could even be possible. Rupert Sheldrake's theory of morphic resonance suggests that patterns of behavior and form are transmitted through fields of resonant frequencies which shape the way organisms behave. This theory can apply to the way werewolf transformations occur, as these transformations seem to happen based on specific triggers that align with morphic resonance. Firstly, the moon phase is considered by many to be a key trigger for werewolf transformations. This could be explained through the theory of morphic resonance, as the gravitational pull of the moon is known to create changes in tides and oceanic patterns. It is possible that this pull also triggers a resonance in werewolf biology, causing the transformation to occur. This resonant field could be created due to the werewolf's own energetic field being primed to respond to the moon's gravitational pull, thereby allowing the transformation to occur. Additionally, heightened emotional states such as stress or fear can trigger a werewolf transformation, at least for me. This could be explained through morphic resonance, by suggesting that a specific emotional frequency is required in order to create a resonant field for the transformation. It is possible that certain emotional frequencies can create a resonance in the body, allowing the transformation to occur. This could be why werewolf transformations are often depicted as occurring during times of heightened stress or fear. Overall, the theory of morphic resonance offers a potential explanation for werewolf transformations. The patterns of behavior and forms seen in the transformation could be explained as being transmitted through resonant fields, triggered by moon phases or heightened emotional states. While there is no scientific evidence to support the theory of werewolf transformations, the theory of morphic resonance offers an intriguing possibility for how these transformations could occur. So bright a star like a supernova, our EP today is Stel Cordova. Please join me in thanking Stel Cordova, who has been a member of our PayPal club at peterbernard.com for so long that it would be rude of me to mention, since it might give away Stel's age. Seriously, thanks to Stel Cordova, who helped make this episode possible along with our other channel members both on peterbernard.com as well as on YouTube, where you can become a channel member by hitting that join button under any of our videos. Here to explain the perks you can get in return is our international TV spokesmongrel, Henry Lee Dogman. Thanks, Biggie, and thanks to all of you for watching this far. If you liked it, please click like. If you'd like to see more of our work, please subscribe. And also click that bell icon if you'd like to be notified when we put out a new episode. To become an executive producer, you can donate to us through the thanks button under each of our videos or through our paypal.me/PeterBernard209 page. To receive cool perks like secret uncensored Dogman episodes far too wild to ever run on this channel, you can become a YouTube channel member by clicking the join button, or join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. Joining either at the $3 a month level or above gets you access to our over 25 hours of secret uncensored Dogman stories available nowhere else. Do you have a scary story about Dogman or some other kind of high strangeness that happened to you? Let us know by emailing us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com or by leaving us a voicemail message at 804-LA-SCARY. You may need to call back on that when it cuts off after I think 3 minutes. And if you don't want to do any of that stuff, thank you for simply watching to the end. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
Come back for more scary stories.